Hi everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Women of Community Banking podcast. I've got Denise with me. Hi Denise, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Can't complain. Tuesday morning, happy Tuesday. So today's good.
That's right. That's right. Always a good day, right?
Have a good day, sunny afternoon. Yeah, out here in New York, looking at the Hudson. Can't complain. Yeah, so it's an average day, but I would say better than average. Good. Firstly, Denise, thank you for taking your time out to join us for an episode today. We really appreciate. I don't think Denise needs an introduction, but still, I'll do a half decent job that I try to do. She's the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Velera. Spent uh, 3 decades, more than 3 decades in payments. That's what we are joking. That I'm 31 and she spent 3 decades in payments. So that's the wisdom that she carries on, and she is responsible for leading, build, support, design, maintenance to innovation that of anything that touches end consumers from Valera. Right. So that's pretty much what she does. Uh, Now, let's maybe start the episode with a few questions, Denise. Before that, I hope I could do a decent introduction of yours. If you want to add something, Denise, please feel free.
You did great. Thanks for the great introduction for sure.
Thank you. So that makes me happy. Let's start with the podcast. Let's talk about your journey, right, Denise? Let's talk about your journey. How was your journey for the last 3 decades, and what brought you here?
Yeah. So, probably like a lot of people in this industry, it was by accident, completely by accident. Um, I actually answered a job posting that was in the newspaper. I know that dates myself. For a company which is now FIS, but back then was Equifax. And I started as a service executive, answering credit union questions for debit card processing. And so from there, I really kind of fell in love with payments and the journey around it. And I stayed with Equifax, which became Certegy, for quite a while. I decided I was going to figure out and work in every part of the kind of the payments ecosystem. So I had the privilege of working for MasterCard. I've worked for Payment Tech. I've worked for a credit union. And I always find my way back to Valera. And, as you and I were talking, the credit union industry is a charming industry, kind of the best kept secret. And so it's really where I've made a home.
I think all of us, right? I mean, once you drink the Kool-Aid, you cannot go back and do something else. That's
For
what
sure.
was I hear. But again, it's a fantastic journey that you've had, Denise. Let's talk about some pivotal moments, right? Now, obviously, this journey has been marked by multiple pivotal moments that brought you to what you do right now, right? So, you want to talk about a few pivotal moments helped you shape your journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, when I really started to understand and have job responsibilities around kind of changing the experience that institutions had with payments is probably was the most pivotal. And I think through those early years, I learned that I kind of fell in love with the technology of it all. Like it just still amazes me that a consumer stands at Target and swipes their card or inserts their card, taps it, and in milliseconds, right? There are so many things that are orchestrated behind the scenes and all these players that have to do their job in order for that consumer to walk out of Target, feeling happy. And so for me, that's just an amazing thing. And then all of the ancillary products and services that have to support that. So that was the pivotal moment when I knew there was kind of this opportunity to support and change the experience. And it had this beautiful blend of technology and business.
Yeah, I think you discovered what will be table stakes 3 decades back. That payments is something that will remain for the rest of the human era. That's the way
Yeah.
how businesses are done, right? I mean, if you ask me, what is FI from me? okay, interesting. You might have the best money market product, you might have everything, but unless your payments work, I'm not banking with you. That's basic, that's table stakes, right? And
Mm-hmm.
doing it, absolutely, that's great. Uh, Talking about leadership, right? Now, obviously, there are different types of product, B2B, B2C. Now, you've been on both the sides, with MasterCard, Equifax, now with Velera. Co-op PSU, then Velera. So now obviously building products is fun for you and hence you do it. My question is, how does leadership in product development, right? Or what does leadership in product development mean to you? Because uh, it's a combination of being agile, nimble, as well as, maintaining that same ethos that credit unions and community banks uh, hold up to them, right? So
Yeah.
how does leadership look like for you?
Yeah, and I think to your point, it is different when you're doing something for an end consumer
Yeah.
versus when you're doing it from a B2B perspective. And so I think for at Velera specifically is probably where I've learned the most around what works for product development and even kind of in the build side of product development, simply because you're building like a one to many type of scenario. And it's a complicated and you have to really love problem solving. I think the best advice and the things that we always do that we have learned the most from is always include our credit unions. So from the beginning of when we have an idea, we usually have some kind of focus group, a task group. We run a lot of advisory groups. That's where we go get the first part of the information. And then we create that task group to kind of follow us on the journey. And that has paid off dividends. Because one thing, and Chuck Fagan always says this, if you build it, with them, they're already there. And it is so true because then we can understand, hey, does this product interfere with your operations group? How will your members interact with this product? What happens, from a fraud perspective? What's your point of view from a credit union point of view? What's going to happen when we introduce this product? And so having those questions and that interaction up front helps us design the product better. It helps us make sure we have all the collateral with the product. And, overall, it creates more success when it's ready for kind of general availability. So my biggest lesson in how we do it, and I think we do it quite well, is include the customer. Our credit unions have tons of ideas and they know what works and they know what doesn't work. And we want them to always be part of the journey of our design so that, because ultimately they're the ones going to buy it, right? So we want to make sure that we're building it with them so it's exactly what they're looking for.
So that means I will create a new term out of this podcast. Always have your end consumers as a co-pilot, right?
That's
While
right.
you're building it, always have a co-pilot. Your first officer should always be your customer because that's what even I believe. Otherwise we are building products that are hypothetical, that are not actually solving the purpose. Because uh, I being a consultant, right? There's a concept called consultant's fallacy. What means
Mm,
it's very relatable. I create decks, right? If I create a
mm-hmm.
page, there's a huge possibility that I love the page so much that I'll go blind on what it says because it's what I've developed. It's same with product. You build a product that you build that you've done, and you always think you love the product because you build the product yourself. But if it doesn't solve the purpose or it cannot be scaled, doesn't really make sense. So that's a great
And I'll give you an
topic.
example of how we're doing it right now, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Obviously, PSU and co-op coming together in the
yeah,
combination to create Velera. And one of the early things we had to do last year
yeah.
was decide, because we had a lot of products that were duplicates. We both went after the same market, we were competitors, so now we have a lot of duplication. And so we did a huge assessment of what would be the target, kind of the target product state. And we built a task force of 20 institutions, 10 being from Legacy PSU and 10 being from Legacy Co op, to come together and help us decide. and they have been with us on the journey for over a year. And I mean, most of what they give in feedback is reflective in either how we're introducing it, how we changed it, how we kept it the same. So I don't know how we would have done it without them, to be honest, because they have, given their time and their energy and their expertise in order for us to be successful. And it's been an outstanding partnership.
I think that's the most important post-merger integration that you've done, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that is very important. I mean, I'm great that it's working out for you.
it
That's
is. We're very happy with it.
that's great. Uh, Talking about innovation and practicality, right? Because I mean, I talk about this a lot because uh, the markets that we serve. I mean, you came from Mastercard, you came from large organizations. The market we serve, the sliver of market, community financial institution, they're very different than talking about a larger FI. Right? That means you have to also balance innovation and practicality. What actually will fly for FIs of size a 1 billion to a 500 million assets, right? For lack of better. So how do you balance innovation and practicality in that product design roadmap?
Yeah, it's a great question because it is always something that we are refining to get better at. And so what we found are there really two key things because your larger institutions in this kind of community market, they like to make sure that they can control the experience where your smaller institutions really need more of the kind of white label or the turnkey type of solution. And so our solve for that is to make sure that when we deliver something, we always do it with optionality. So always have APIs, and then we always have kind of a turnkey product as well. So that way, the largest of the large can kind of pick and choose the best features of some product and integrate it in with an experience they already have. We do a lot of partnerships with a lot of the online banking providers, a lot of cores, because, ultimately we know the goal is that we want the credit union to succeed. And, we know that credit unions are largely made up of a bunch of partners on the back end. And so, when you think of payments, I mean, likely a credit union has a different digital provider, different from their core, different from their payments processor. So, they have the hard challenge of trying to bring all these partners together to create this seamless experience, which the big banks don't have that same problem. They control it all, right? And so we truly believe part of our mission is to help credit unions achieve that. And so we want to give them options for them to control it, whether they want to integrate it somewhere, that experience, or if we offer kind of a turnkey solution they can just take advantage of. So that is kind of the underlying, the foundational pieces of how we deliver. Then obviously, depending on unique needs, we adjust. So, we'll do that, for a very large institution that wants to do something just a tiny bit different. We'll make sure that we can accommodate that.
Okay, that's an interesting way to think about it. Now let me ask you some not difficult questions. Like I want to ask you about product philosophy, right? Because by the one of my podcasts, the Outlier podcast, was started out of my love for Apple. I mean, I love simple products. I love, you know, as a consultant, I mean, my philosophy is that if you cannot explain something in 3 bullets, let's not even waste our time, right? I mean, that's table stakes. So my question again, the power of three that I've been taught since I was a kid. My same question is that if you have to define Velera's product philosophy in 3 words, right? What would they be and why?
Yeah. The first word would be collaborative. And that really goes back to why we exist as a QSO. I mean, it really is to make sure that we are helping position credit unions to compete. I mean, it really is the mission of the company. And we view ourselves as payments experts and want to make sure that, all the investment that we do is in the kind of the spirit of collaboration. Because this industry, you can't go at it alone, right? I mean, the competitors are just too big. And to your point earlier when we were talking, spend billions of dollars in these spaces, right? So first and foremost, it's collaboration. The second is we want to always do mindful innovation. So we want to make sure we're the stewards of, our collective CUSO's profits, right? So we use a lot of the investment to reinvest in products and services and look for new ones. So it's mindful innovation. We want to make sure credit unions really want to be in the space that we're looking at. So making sure that they are part of the journey, making sure they're providing tons of feedback. So we're not wasting investment in spaces that credit unions really don't think they're going to be able to kind of really be successful in. And the third is service, right? And we define service not in just the friendliness, right? That we'll answer the phone and we'll be consultative and help our credit
Yeah,
unions, but service also in tech, right? Really using technology as an enabler to
yeah,
drive better outcomes, whether
yeah.
that's, us being able to answer the question faster or being able to create self-service tools for the credit unions to do things on their own. So our kind of version of service is pretty broad and includes kind of the technology piece and the human centric piece of it. So those would be my three things to sum it up.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, unless you have these three, say, pillars to your product philosophy, you can never be successful. That's pretty well thought about, and that's the reason you guys have scaled to being the largest user in the ecosystem, right? And there's a
Yeah.
reason behind it. So I mean, all of us respect what Velera does, and we're always there with you.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely, ma'am. Now moving gears more to Denny's. You know, enough of work. Let's talk about your journey right
Yeah.
now. Now, running product and technology for a large organization, more than billions in ARR. That's quite a lot of things. Now, that hasn't come to you without challenges. Definitely, you face like thousands of challenges, right? But you want to talk about how do you, I would say, solve for problems and challenges and actually move forward, because that's a learning I think a lot of us need to have.
Yeah. It's a great question because I think it always kind of changes and every time you learn more, you might tweak or refine something in how you approach opportunity. I will say that there are constant problems that happen, right? I mean, I think by nature, I'm a problem solver. So I kind of love the complicated things that you have to either, kind of unwind and then re-put together has always kind of been something that, I have a lot of passion around. So
Yeah,
it matches well with kind of my day-to-day job because we do, on a daily basis, we're making a lot of decisions. But ultimately, it comes down to the team you build. And,
yeah,
as I have moved through the organization from an individual contributor to an executive, I have always learned that it's all about the team and not the team you're leading, just in your own org, but the team environment you create across the organization and even extending to the customer base. I mean, I've had relationships with credit unions for as long as I've been at Velera. And so making sure that our relationship building is super important, making sure your team one of the biggest things for us is creating autonomy, empowerment, and safety,
Yeah,
right? Because you're not everybody is going to make all the right decisions all the time. And, we want to create an environment where there's safety in making some mistakes and being okay with it, really learning from it. And so that's super important for people to grow and learn. And I've made my share of mistakes for sure in my career, and people have, helped me, get up off, dust my knees off and start again. And so that's really important to create that environment and that culture. And at Valera, we take a lot of time and effort and really focus in making sure our employees they feel like they're empowered, because ultimately they're serving the credit unions. And we want to make sure that, we mirror the philosophy that credit unions have of really just caring about their member like day and night. We try to do the same, and as leaders, we try to do that for our employees. So, there's always going to be mistakes, there's always going to be problems. I think the key is how you handle it, how you become a good decision maker, and really supporting and creating relationships with the people around you.
absolutely. I want to ask you one parting question.
Yeah.
Is in terms of advice, right? Because for me, I understood like very early on my career, the most important thing is mentorship. Unless you have your mentor sorted, you're not going anywhere in life. That's very important. That's my advice to anyone who's aspiring to a leader. What are your 2 cents? What advice do you want to give to aspiring, specifically women leaders, right? Who
Yeah.
are leadership roles both within a credit union, outside credit union, QSOs and fintechs. As a whole, what is your advice?
Yeah, well, I love yours, right? Because I think mentorship is extremely important as you're, kind of navigating and growing a career. I think for women specifically, making sure that you support other women, I think that's super important. And really building out your network, and always have curiosity. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I think women tend to show up and think, gosh, I'm here, I've been invited, versus you're here for a reason, right? You're here at the table for reasons. You have contributions that you've given, you have knowledge, you have a presence, whatever the reason is, kind of owning that is super important for women. So build a network, stay curious, and know that the reason you're there is because you've earned it.
Absolutely. So Denise, this was one of the amazing episodes I did. Again, thank you for taking your time out
Thank you so
to
much.
record this show with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.